and these technical difficulties, wanted to share this talk about how to engineer a military transition into a tech career. Basically, a little about me. I just retired from the U.S. Army last year, about 21 years of service, both enlisted as an officer. I was infantry and signal officer, served in a variety of positions. Last one was in Division G6 with 2ID in Korea, and came back here. And then basically completed a bachelor's degree back in the day, of course, like for all officers, and a master's in information assurance, and currently an MBA candidate with George Washington. And my talk will discuss my experience and a lot of the conversation I saw being held during the transition when I was going through how to leverage some of the resources that are out there, especially a lot of people you will see have their own transition checklist. Some VSOs, veteran service organizations, will provide one, and then basically talk about the three things, especially for as it relates to IT and cyber. People talk about certifications, college degree, and apprenticeship, which one is better, and discuss your resume, online presence, and various other topics. So for the pre-transition checklist, they say fortune favors the brave, but I would say also fortune favors the prepared. We don't go into battle without a battle plan. So is your transition. Find a transition checklist or create your own that will encompass a lot of the guidance that you would use for your last 2 or 3 years of military service. I'm especially talking about people who will retire, but it's even for regular officers who want to refrad, some people who want to ETS. You have an idea in your mind, unless you're being med boarded or chaptered or some other issue that surfaces, then basically you will have a shorter timeline. But if you have a longer timeline, then start planning early. And of course, along the transition, by studying and doing everything, of course, you still have to finish all your separation timeline, so that you'd have to encompass that and include it in your transition checklist. And while in the service, you still have that free money in the form of the tuition assistance and credential assistance. So that's why it's beneficial to start early, thinking about what you want to do. Everybody keeps talking about, I want to go into IT, I want to go into cyber. Even if you're an IT guy, a signal officer or signal soldier, or in the Air Force, you might be a cyber guy. Of course, you still have to learn how to transition that in outside of the military. Again, I just picked an example of this transition checklist. There's a million of them out there. This one here was shared by a retired SF officer, Kirk Windmiller, and I liked it because it encompasses a lot of these things. If you go on his website, on his LinkedIn, Kirk Windmiller, and you will see it. But again, I will zero in on a couple of things. For example, when it says you determine your pathway, especially if you want to talk about IT and cyber and cloud, what do you want to do? Even in cyber, what would you want to do? And then figure out also other things that you have to do alongside it. See, there's so many tasks you have to accomplish while you're transitioning, to include your terminal leave, to include your VA claim, to include all your medical out processing and everything like this. And of course, one of the things, and we heard it earlier with Jax, and you will hear it a lot, business attire. Some people will go and splurge on 2, 3, 4 business suits, where in reality you might just need one, at least for the interviews and for your headshot potentially, or something like that. At least have one, and then afterwards, if you're required, then you go into purchasing. Depending on the industry you're going to go with. If you're going to be a cyber guy with in a bank or the financial industry, for example, they might favor you having more business attire than just jeans. But again, it depends on the company you're going to work with, the culture of that company. And then, of course, let's talk about certifications versus degree versus job experience. A lot of times you will hear that debate, and people will say, I work with somebody who doesn't have any degree. He has a high school, and he might have 1 or 2 certifications, but he has a lot of job experience. So again, those are opinions, but I will say at least try to tackle all 3 of them to a certain degree. Let's start with certifications. Try to find ones that are relevant to your desired path. You want to go IT or cloud, or specific into cyber, and within cyber, what would you want to do? Or you want to go into networking or software engineering, GRC, DevOps, privacy, audit. A lot of things are open, but you have to start picking a path and stick to it. And of course, pay attention to the qualifications. You hear a lot of people wanting CISM and CISSP and whatever, but then of course, with those kind of certifications, you have to look at what job experience is required for them. Start incrementally and follow the market trends for desired certifications. A lot of them, for example, either LinkedIn or DICE or IT info skills, from time to time they might have those trends. Of course, like other people would say, they might have biased background for why they would publish those kind of trends, but some of them will still give you kind of like a market analysis of where the market is going, especially if it's like from DICE, for example, or cyberseek.org or other websites. And again, don't chase too many rabbits. Start with one sector and then gain some knowledge and job experience before expanding. For example, you might, you're new to IT and you new to InfoSec, new to cyber. You might start, for example, a little bit with some GRC, because all of us have done some risk management. We know how to read regulations, and you can follow some instructions, for example. And while you're doing it, you can start expanding your knowledge into other areas of cyber. Or some people want to go into IT. You're not going to be, you can start at least with the knowledge that, let's say, a CompTIA A+ and Net+ might give you. You don't have to necessarily pay for it and get the certification unless you get maybe work paying for it, for example. But at least gain the knowledge, and then start with Security+ and move on to expand your experience and get an entry-level job and start your career. What about boot camps? We had earlier a great discussion with Greg from Level Effect and other people like this. A lot of those boot camps will only, they have a sleazy reputation. Go into it with open eyes. Just because it's paid by VetSec, and it's not your money coming out of your own pocket, it's still a benefit that you earn. So that it's still going to be time that you're going to have to invest. So my advice is do some due diligence and investigate and inquire about that bootcamp before paying money. Just because they're going to advertise full stack web dev or cyber or anything like this, do some due diligence, understand, and ask around. Other places right now that can provide this, always try to go for free or low cost education first for certifications. Purdue Northwest, they have a cyber workforce cyber training, for example. SANS Immersion Academies, Empower, if you're living in one of those states that they serve, or for example, O2O, Onward to Opportunity from Syracuse, or Vets in Tech. Through their partnership, for example, with the various DraftKings and Salesforce and everything like that. You can go, if you want to do Salesforce, they have the military trailheads. All these are available training opportunities that are low cost or free, provided by some organizations through donations. So you don't have to pay from the get-go. Even VetSec, as Tom alluded to yesterday and this morning, they have a lot of partnerships where you can gain some training for free. All you have to bring is your dedication and your hard work. What about PMP? Everybody keeps telling service members, we're project managers. You did this, you're a project manager. Everybody is encouraged to get their PMP. If you want to go into that project management route, yes, it will help you. Again, understand your qualifications, figure out your career path. You can be a generalist project manager, for example, or you can be a technical project manager, depending on the companies. PMP will help you at least understand the methodologies, speak the language, and apply it with other people. For a college degree, again, everybody will have different opinions about it, but at times it's an HR filter. At least if you're going to go for a college degree, make sure it's regionally accredited. None of those, of course, as we know, we saw the blowout of ITT Tech and other companies like that. Understand your own competencies and gaps. For example, your learning style, whether you're a visual learner or a reader, or you're self-starter, you can do things online and complete an online degree, or you have to be on premises and go have a butt in seat, or understand your competencies and gaps. And of course, crowdsource for opinions and experience from other vets. There's a lot of organizations, and of course, as in VetSec on the Slack channel, there's, for example, an education channel where you can talk to other people who have maybe gone for certain colleges, and they would tell you their experience. Of course, some of them speaking, on the Slack channel, people want to go for like a computer science BS, a bachelor's degree. Oregon State gets thrown around. I'm not advocating for any of them. I haven't been to one of them. I'm just saying, for example, when you crowdsource for opinions and advice, you get some of these. Or Georgia Tech, for example, for masters, they have an awesome online master's in computer science. Or Western Governors University that could provide best of both worlds, a degree and certifications. Of course, some people might not say Western Governors has high credibility, for example, because it's competency based and whatnot. But at the end, it's also how you apply yourself to learn the knowledge, not just pass a test. And there's CyberCore, for example, where is scholarship for service, where certain universities will partner with CyberCore. You get stipend, you get scholarship to complete your bachelor's, master's, even up to a PhD, and you go and work for a government organization, federal, state, local. It's a 1-to-1 year of service. You get 5-year scholarship, for example, to complete up to your master's. You owe 5 years to the government in whatever field or agency, and use your benefits diligently, either GI Bill, VetTech, or even, for example, if you're pursuing undergrad STEM, there's that Edith Norris Rogers scholarship also after you exhausted your GI Bill, that gives you about 9 months or up to $30,000 of money. So the point is understand your benefits, but don't waste them. Some people will just use it just to get the BAH. Your GI Bill is worth more than the BAH. Apprenticeship, it's another way to acquire a job experience. It's different than internship. Why? Because internship is more geared toward college interns, graduates, and it's usually unpaid, versus an apprenticeship. It's governed. And there's some regulations. I'm not an HR professional, but basically they will have some, requirements to Department of Labor for what constitutes an apprentice. You'll learn something, and it's going to be paid usually, and the timeline is longer. Whereas an internship might be about 3 months, for example, like let's say for a transition service member that has SkillBridge or Hiring Our Heroes. Some other companies might provide an apprenticeship, like, for example, with AWS, they want to train and hire more veterans. So they, Jason Edwards, for example, yesterday was talking about, they will hire for software developers or cloud support engineers or solution architects or what have you. And it's going to be a regimented program that's going to be longer, usually 6 months or up to a year. Google, for example, Microsoft, Cisco, Wells Fargo, for example, they would have something in the finance industry, but also you could potentially focus on fintech as far as cyber and IT in there, or USA, for example. Those are not all encompassing, but at least it will, it's a starting point. And there's so many out there of that. The apprenticeships, just keep looking, but of course you have to be aware of the application timelines and the qualifications. For example, with AWS and some of these other companies, they might require you to have at least a 2-year associate degree or some experience in technology or STEM background or something like that. Moving to resume, and we have to be cognizant. None of us have done a resume or interview for a long time once you're in the military, so especially if you're retiring. And I'm talking to my retirees. I hadn't conducted a resume in hundreds of years before going out. And there's always a debate whether you're going to have it paid by a professional resume writer or utilize one of these organizations like Hiring Our Heroes, Hire Heroes USA or USO or anything like this. It's up to you. What I would recommend from my own experience, at least have something that speaks to you, because you might go to a professional resume writer, especially if you're first transitioning from the military, and when it reads like somebody just swallowed a thesaurus, chewed it out, and spit out $25 words. And then you don't know sometimes how to convey it, and it does not feel authentic. So have something that speaks to you. You can create one on your own and have other people fix it for you or help you fix it. Like on the VetSec Slack channel, there's a lot of hiring managers and professionals out there, wordsmiths, that can help you wordsmith the heck out of it. Update it constantly as you change jobs, and add to your experience. But of course, make it speak to a civilian audience. A lot of times we fall into these traps. You're an E7 to an E9, especially the E9, they might market themselves as a COO, or the O4, O5s might market themselves as a CEO of their organization and whatnot. We're not a CEO. A company commander is not a senior project manager working with executives, assistant to the executive suites or something. Make it speak to the audience at their level, what they understand. And be humble about it. Not saying, "Oh, I was an O3, I was an O4, I was an O6, I should be a senior something." No, those guys understand a different level of experience, specifically in technical terms as well. And it has to be targeted for each position. Yes, it's hard, but the more times you hear about other people, especially recruiters, advice about how to speak and how to target, they always advise for a targeted approach, not spray and pray, as you know. Know how to communicate your skills to a civilian. Also, not just in words on your resume, but also during the interview, on when talking to another person. Okay, the interview loop. Okay, understand about the company. Like, for example, Jason Edwards yesterday was talking about how Amazon. They have, for example, their leadership principles. When I interviewed with them, I understood, I learned, I researched about the company vision and mission and leadership principles, and try to communicate my military experience to a civilian manager in a way that it relates. For example, when they say bias for action, we know in the military you have that take charge attitude. You, when in charge, be in charge, or support, or anything like this. So you know how to convey it. When they're talking about customer obsession, yes, we don't have customers per se in the military, but you have other stakeholders, either your company, if you're at a company level or a battalion, or your soldiers or your leaders or your sister battalions, that's how you should communicate that company. And I'm not talking about it, I'm only talking about AWS as a caveat. I'm not representing them, for example. I'm just sharing my own experience. Use the STAR method, like Jason and others would always advise: situation, task, action, and result. Or the AIR method, action, impact, and result. But always provide what a result of your action was in that particular scenario. You have 2 or 3 bullets, at least have some metrics on each bullet. A lot of us, unfortunately, we say, we think, okay, I was in the military, there's no budget, who cares about budget? But there's other things that you can provide as a result. Percentages of, you conducted cybersecurity inspection, or you managed, your supply sergeant, and you manage X amount of money, but how much of that was, you did not lose it, or there is no deprecation, or you were a supervisor, how many, think of the metrics that were commensurate and linked to your job, and relay that to that hiring manager. And of course, don't let, as you transition from the military, don't let that first interview be your first interview. There's a bunch of services out there like Canderful, for example, that could help you conduct mock interviews and critique you on VetSec and other organizations. There's veterans out there kind enough to say, hey, I'll give you some time. From my experience, I've been a hire manager, I'll give you some time and talk and conduct a mock interview with you. But don't, and the more you do it, the more easy, it will become easier, and you convey yourself better. Of course, there will always be stress associated with this, but it's gonna be minimized over time. And then, of course, with your resume, always crowdsource it for feedback. Understand, of course, you ask 10 people for opinions, you'll get 10 different opinions about how to do your resume. You go back to 5 of them, they will give you 5 different opinions. Don't get frustrated, don't get confused. At least get the good feedback and try to implement it, because everybody will see it from their own point of view, especially for the hire managers. Moving on to the online presence. Online presence, again, you hear that being said again and again. Your network is your net worth. Don't let your network be the first, when you use it, is the first time you need it, when you want to use it. Make meaningful connections. And I'm speaking here, of course, about LinkedIn, because it's a professional network. We're not talking about, everything else on social media. But again, that's a way for you to build your social brand, as Jax and Joe Hudson and other people always talk about. Michael Quinn on LinkedIn, for example, that's the advice. When you hear these influencers, they will, now the talk is about building a social brand. What are you known for? Okay. Follow people to learn from them. Some of them might be open to connections, but the majority will at least have the follow button available. It allows you to learn from other influencers and luminaries and other people that are expert in the field you want to go into. And it allows you also, when you comment or share or repost their posts, to become known. Your name keeps popping up, and then you find your ease of discussion, and you start figuring out how to promote yourself and how to project yourself online. And post about your activities, of course. You hear that from some people. Post about what you've done, but not necessarily have to spam. If you finished one little course on LinkedIn Learn, for example, yes, it might be good to say, okay, I've finished, but not necessarily just have that blind view my completed activity on X. At least share a quick blurb of what you learned about it, or what you have done. If you attended, for example, VetSecCon, don't just say attending VetSecCon, awesome time. At least post about something, so people, when they read that, it doesn't show up as a spam, just cluttering their feed and their eyeball time. but they might learn something about it that, some even, you get my meaning. And then beyond LinkedIn, some people try to go into different avenues, having a blog and or a GitHub where they might have some projects. Some people also might have a podcast. But the last one here, you have to understand: will it add value, or will it just clutter the field out there of a lot of military influencers that might have good legitimate content, and you just come in here and you just adding yourself to the mix without providing value? If you're gonna have a blog or anything else, make sure it adds value to people's time, so they will reciprocate to you with you about, in the term of likes or reshare or something like this, or just connections for later. Of course, everybody should know by now, LinkedIn offers a premium for veterans and their military spouses. Please take advantage of it. And it's, you can resubscribe again like 2-3 times. They're pretty lenient about it so far. Thanks to them. Information and interviews, you'll hear that also again. It allows you to gain insight into an industry or field. You don't just come in and say, I want to be in IT, I want to go into cyber. Understand, learn about it. First of all, do a little bit of research. And you want to hear about cybersecurity analyst, you don't know what a cybersecurity analyst or threat hunter or cyber threat intelligence. Okay, get onto some platform and start gaining insight, but come a little bit prepared to learn about it and the daily responsibilities of that person. What do they do at his or her company? Not, if you connect with somebody and he says, I'm a cyber threat intel guy at Mandiant, don't come to the conversation without having and learned what Mandiant is or what X company is, for example. And it will allow you also, as you discover your future, what is the best educational or employment background or opportunities to reach that, that position. For example, a lot of people will come as an E1, for example. For E1, from day one, they start thinking about, I want to become an NCO. I want to be, the O1s will say, I want to become a colonel. Of course, unless they're West Pointers, and they'll say, how do I become a general? But they start working toward it, and you start saying how to get promoted. What kind of employment do I have to accomplish, positions that I have to fulfill to get there. This will also help you narrow your career path, especially if you're transitioning into cybersecurity and you cannot just say, I want to go into cyber. Cyber is so vast, with at least 52 or 54 work roles according to an ICISS. Okay, understand what you want to do. You want to work in a SOC, you want to work in everything. Audit, so you can find somebody that will do, that will share with you what is that path. And, obligatory quote in any PowerPoints, for example. I like this one here from Otto von Bismarck, back in, from old German chancellor. Only a fool learns from his own mistakes. The wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And that's what we do here through these informational interviews. People who have been through that path before us, we learn from their experience. Mentorship, moving on with that one, is, we did it in the military and we continue doing it in the civilian world. But then from this one here is going to be from a civilian perspective. Provides you a comfort zone to get your advice and be ready to listen and to learn, not just always talk. And have a reciprocity in that relationship. Also help that mentor to, give him feedback, give him advice, be in charge of that mentorship as well. Not just wait for him to just dispense advice, but also give advice. And then have your own board of advisors. Like corporations have a board of advisors or a board of directors. You can create your own little board of advisors for different jobs that you want to do, or career, or topics in your career search, for example. And pay for when able. When you get to that level, 2-3 years later, 4 years, or even whenever you're ready, sign up to be able to pay for it and give back to the community. For example, there's here, American Corporate Partners or Veterati or USA Pathfinder. Those are some organizations where you can gain that mentorship. And of course, later on, you can seek it also, for example, in VetTech Slack, they have it, or another avenue of approach where you find it amenable to you. Networking, we never can get enough of it. It helps you to grow your professional network. It goes back to your networking, your online presence also. If you have that, good, people will always try to connect with you also, or when you try to connect with them, it will allow you to allow them to know a little bit more about you. If you don't have a nice online presence, professionally looking, and one that adds value, people will be reticent sometimes. Of course, seek out all opportunities for networking when you have the time and the ability, either virtual or in person, and use it to build relationships, a give and take, reciprocal relationship, and build your reputation when you go in there. And that ties into that online presence that I alluded to earlier, and learn more. When a lot of people over these past 2 days and outside, they will advise you to join other organizations, ISACA or ISC Square or PMI, and it allows you to join those local chapters, for example, meet other people, grow your network, and learn about the industry. Allows you also to create your tribe. A lot of veterans leave the military, they miss that sense of camaraderie, that esprit de corps that we find sometimes, whether we were happy with it or not. But eventually now you have to replace it with something, so to fill that void from your military service. And of course, a bunch of companies are and organizations are available like there. This industry, they do networking events monthly, 4-block. That's a good opportunity to a 10-week program. Once you accept it, now it's virtual and or online, where with 10 weeks they have a curriculum where to learn about how to create your resume, how to target your job search and target your resume as well, and everything. And each week you meet with a different company, PwC, USA, Wells Fargo, AWS, Uber, and you learn from the higher managers and who are veterans, and some talent acquisition folks who are there. 50 Strong is the same thing. Candy Tillman is a nice, good lady that always talks about either skill bridge and or meeting employers. And we cannot forget VetSec as well, where there's a way to create your tribe. And Act Now Education is another organization that's out there that has a lot of good resources and reputation. Bottom line is, rip excuses. So thank you so much. I appreciate this. I hope I made some impact here. If you have any questions, please let me know here on chat, or I don't know if you can come on screen. The one thing I'm trying to add to over here, for example, try to dissect a lot of the information that I've been gleaning over time and share it here. Always, what I would add, not just to fill the empty air here, but have a purpose. Have a purpose for and craft your transition. And the transition does not stop right there. Even if you just get out of the military, some people connected, they have a year and a half, 6 months. Even if you transition afterwards, you can still continue using some of these points to build your network afterwards. I appreciate your attention and advice. How can folks learn what all the different roles in cybersecurity are? So the one that I understand and I used, there's cyberseek.org, for example, that has paths for different ways to go into networking or security or audit or whatever. There's also, for example, NICIS, the work roles. Let me see here if I think I'm still sharing here, NICSS.